Hello. Hi, guys. I'm Danielle Cummings, if you don't know me. Because I'm usually in second service, I know more of you than first service, which is kind of nice. So I'm a little less afraid now. You guys are like friendlier people. No, I'm kidding. It's just different when you know people versus not. In case you don't know me, I am an arts minister, which is a weird job title. Talk to me after if you want to know more. I mostly write fiction. I am a leader here at Hope Astoria. I have been for a while now, actually. And I am a really quick way to know me in like a capsule is I'm a certified mom friend. I am like a little bit over responsible, and I probably know what's best for you, and my face will say it even if my mouth does not. So I also love kids. Like, I'm not just a mom to adult people. I am also a huge fan of kids. I've worked with kids kind of my whole life in different capacities. So I grew up with daycare in my house. And from the time I was like a little baby, I was like, these are my babies, and I must care for them. And so I have helped take care of other kids like all the time. I love it. I've created kids curriculum. I've worked like as a nanny. And in fact, this is the family that I nannied for. If you ever hear me talk about them, their last name is Savage. So if I say the Savages, that's their name, right? I'm not just being like a terrible person. So the older one is Josiah, and the younger one here is Valor. I've really gotten to be part of their family. They actually made me godmother a couple years ago. I really love them. It's like such a huge joy in my life. My friend once called me out and was like, it's so annoying because you're like a mom showing pictures of her kids, but you don't even have kids. Like, so I couldn't resist. But I wanted to share a little bit about them because I think it's relevant as we're talking about, baby Jesus today. We're going to talk a little bit about kids. And in particular, I know we just got to hear some really happy screaming back there. And we had a really adorable song happening a little while ago. But I think that there is something truly spiritual about toddler meltdowns and the parents that endure them. And so one of the most fun things is that toddler meltdowns are often really nonsensical. I don't know there's like hashtags and stuff. It's great, like why my toddler is mad at me. So I wanted to share some of my favorite toddler meltdowns that I have personally experienced. So the first one is a snowy day like today. And this kid has a full meltdown on the sidewalk. This is the older brother, because he's upset that the cars can't go inside to get warm. It's too cold. The poor cars are stuck in the snow. It's a wholesome reason for a meltdown, but it's a lot. The younger brother, I think it was, got really mad because the bathwater wouldn't stay still when he told it to. He was like, stay still, and as he got more agitated, the water also got more agitated, and he couldn't comprehend that maybe that was connected. And then my personal favorite, I had a full-on breakdown, screaming, crying fit because they were mad at me because this is a different kid, not these kids. These kids are angels. But a full screaming fit from a different kid because I couldn't turn off the moon in the daytime because it's not the moon's turn. So, and when you experience these things, it can be a little bit embarrassing for the grown-up in the situation, right? It's weird when you're like getting judged by people walking past you on the sidewalk and you're trying to get your kid to the park and you know that they're going to like it at the park, but they can't go because the fire hydrant is too round. Like, it's a lot. And I think it can be really hard, right? But I think part of why it's embarrassing for us is that honestly, as adults, we relate to it more than we would like to, right? Like some days you're like hurrying somewhere and you spill your coffee and you're like, oh, well, right? It happens. Some days you're like, look! This is proof I can't do anything right. I shouldn't be trusted. I should just go back to bed. I break everything I touch, okay? So it's like there are moments like that for us too, where something seemingly small and silly creates a bigger reaction than maybe we feel like it should. And we know, as the grown-ups, of course, that if that's happening, it's probably reflective of something else going on, right? Like the reason the toddler's having a meltdown isn't really about the fire hydrant or the moon. They're already overtired, right? And when they're already overexhausted, it's like this one more thing is just the right thing that pushes them over the edge. And it's the same for us. If you're having meltdowns over small seeming things, right? I'm sure we're all super emotionally aware, mature people, and we know we've got to reflect, right? If I'm breaking down about spilling my coffee, I probably have something else going on, and I'm probably feeling overstretched and overtired in other areas. So we love to spiritualize this experience, and in particular, the experience of trying to avoid that meltdown, right? And so we love to spiritualize kind of vaguely, not necessarily using biblical language, like, I'm going to fill up so that I can overflow, right? We love that. We love the idea of like, oh, what I really need is a season of rest, right? It's like vaguely spiritual to have seasons in the Bible, but this is like a fully made up example of one. And so you get like a bunch of like, oh, I'm supposed to really focus on loving me so I can love others. Like you get this really weird way that we love to kind of spiritualize and adopt spiritual language to really talk about self-care. And rest, I want to be clear, rest is spiritual. I'm very passionate about it. Talk to me about Sabbath. Like I have a whole rant about it. But I think the way we talk about it and the way that we engage with it is often not. And what I mean by that specifically is that I think we have this feeling or this lie that I need to get to a certain place before I can pour out, right? I need to get to a certain place of spiritual maturity, or I need to get to a certain level of peace before I can give to anybody else, right? I need to reach a certain level in my life before I can start serving or giving or whatever it is. And I think that that's something that we all fall for, right? And we spiritualize, but I think at the heart of it, that's something that we really are afraid of is like, oh, if I'm going to have to give before I'm ready, right? What would that mean? What would that entail? And so, yeah, we love to talk about filling to overflow, but we're going to talk about Mary today. We're going to focus on her, like I said, mom friend, so Mary's my favorite. But I think we can all really relate to her in this story. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why. And what happens to Mary at the height of her exhaustion, right? Because it's not that. She doesn't get a season of rest. Like, that's not what happens to her. So I'm going to read from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. So I'm going to step over here. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about what that means. This was the registration before Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the guest room. So this is the scene. It's very easy to kind of gloss over because it's just a few verses, but we're going to actually really unpack, like we have a good idea historically of all the things that are being alluded to really quick in these verses. So we're going to talk about what's actually going on in this scene. Yeah, and in particular, like, I'm going to venture to guess most people here have seen a nativity before, right? We were just in Diker Heights, and I got to see, like, a bunch of different nativity scenes in people's yards. What comes to mind? People can just shout out. What comes to mind when you picture a nativity? What do you guys think about? A manger. Good. A+. It's in the passage. That's a good biblical answer. What? 3 magi. Ooh, yeah. Okay, that's for next week. But yes, yeah. Does anybody here think about like a stable, like a barn? Okay, we kind of picture like a quaint English countryside, really, honestly. If we could jump to the next slide. This is sort of what I think we imagine. Doesn't this look so familiar? It's so cute. You can buy ornaments of this, right? There's the hay because it's England, and there's the barn, and the cute little animals. Oh, they're so happy. And look, Mary and Joseph, very white, are like thrilled. Okay, so this has almost nothing to do with the actual nativity story, okay? There's a few ways that we know this. So the presence of the word manger, like to us, that's like what animals eat out of. It's like a feeding trough. So to Western people learning the story, they're like, oh, like in a farm. So they drew it like this. which makes total sense, but it's not right. And now in a more global world, we have more connections to the actual place where this happened, and we know what they did with their animals, because they still do it a lot of the time. And so, I'm going to unpack it a little bit more as we get there. But just as a teaser, this is not an accurate nativity. And in particular, the blissful, peaceful smiles, I think, is not a real part of the story. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. In reality, I think this story is the most exhausting story, especially for Mary. And we're going to talk a lot about why that is. So, to start with, I think Mary is exhausted socially. All right? We're going to unpack this. We've talked a little about it in previous weeks, right? That there would be some shame and problems around the fact that she's gotten pregnant outside of marriage. But I think it's worse than that. And I think you guys could actually kind of imagine why. Because she got pregnant while she was promised to someone else. All right, so it's one thing for somebody to get pregnant single. And again, this would have been worse at the time, but I think even to this day we can picture, if you think of an upstanding couple at church, they get engaged. Everyone's like, yeah, it's great. They're both such good leaders. And then the woman gets pregnant, and it's not the guys. All right, what's going to happen in that situation? Realistically, there's a lot of questions. There's probably some kind of side eye, right? I think at best you're dealing with whispers and rumors and like sidelong looks. And I think at worst, you're actually probably dealing at this time with public confrontation over and over again. Why did this happen to you? What were you doing? Shame on you. How could you make this poor man marry you? Blah, 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 like all this stuff, right? So Mary is going through months and months of answering questions, being misunderstood. And something that's crucial to understand is we read the story and we're like, oh, so nice. God sent an angel. The angel just like explained the whole thing. But the angel wasn't like in the town, right? The angel privately was like, hey, Mary, here's what's going on. Hey, Joseph, just so you know, right? There was no like him explaining to the general population, hey guys, don't shame Mary. We're cool. I'm an angel. This is from God. None of that. So they don't have any of this information, right? The townspeople around them, their families probably didn't even, like we don't even get record of Mary's parents being told anything. I mean, that would be so hard, right? Even if you're a faithful person, it's a crazy story, right? No, like God got me pregnant. Like, okay. And I think that, like, again, at best, you're dealing with being really misunderstood. And I think at worst, you're dealing with like active, constant shaming about the situation that you're going through. So it's socially exhausting. And then on top of that, I think this time was politically exhausting, especially for Mary. So I know it's hard, but I want you guys to imagine being politically exhausted. All right? Just imagine like the inundation of like rising prices, taxes. I want you guys to imagine maybe like a broken ruler, right? With like a really big ego that's very fragile. And so it's hard because rulers today are so godly. But back then, King Herod, we've talked a little about this. Pharaoh went into this a little in the first week, right? King Herod was actually a client king who was put into place by Rome. So he was king of the Jews, right? But he was under Augustus. I want to kind of explain a little bit in the passage that it's like confusing. And it should be confusing. So when you're reading, like everyone goes back to their hometown, right? You'll notice that they pick apart separately. And Joseph also went to Bethlehem. Now, the reason this is weird is that Bethlehem is not Joseph's hometown. He lived in Nazareth. All his stuff is in Nazareth, right? So what you'll see is even literally some translations write like tax census. But I'm going to just tell you, I'm a nerd. If you talk to me at all about the Bible, you know I love to research this stuff, and I've done like hours of work on this. I'm going to give you, to save time / make you still like me, I'm going to give you just what I think is the most viable option for this, okay? So he's not from Bethlehem. Why on earth would the census, especially for tax purposes, have him leave his stuff to go to Bethlehem? right? This would be like me being like, okay, roll call, hide and seek, right? Like that makes no sense. That would be a very ineffective way for me to take attendance and figure out who's here, is to send you guys all hiding around the building in different places. And so if you're doing something for tax purposes, like you want to know where's this person live, what do they have, what's their family size, like it makes no sense to be like, actually, I want you to go to your religious ancestral homeland for tax reasons. That makes no sense. What it does make sense is if Herod, who again is under Augustus, so it would still say Augustus, if he called for the registration. So the word registration has some ambiguity in it. Again, I'm going to give you what I think is the most viable option on what I think was happening here. It is very well documented that Herod, who was king of the Jews, not Jewish, installed by Rome, was super increasingly paranoid near the end of his life, which is when this is, about a Jewish heir to the throne. He was super paranoid about it. He was afraid of somebody coming out of the line of David and being like, hey, I'm the rightful king, and challenging his kingship, okay? And so Herod is, I think, he's the one calling for this registration, because in Judea, what he's doing is he's assembling the descendants of the line of David back in Bethlehem, all right? So I think he's specifically getting a registration of who are the other possible claimants to the throne. And the Bible tells us they were there for up to maybe 2 years, which is a really long time. So this wasn't just like we go down, we sign some papers, we go back, right? This was like they had to be there, and they had nowhere to stay, so it wasn't like we just enjoy Bethlehem, let's hang out here, right? Why did they have to go down for that long? I think probably there's historical precedent at the time for sort of like loyalty rituals. And so I think Herod was probably getting the heirs of David to have a registry of them and also making them swear allegiance to him again. All right? So this is a very different picture, right? Already, because the broken political realities are like you have this paranoid ruler who is trying to seek out possible people that he's labeled an enemy, and he's like specifically trying to get a list and make them swear their loyalty to him again. Now, the clear thing that's going on is there's delays and overcrowding, right? Even back then, bureaucracy was bureaucracy. But then I imagine it was worse, right? Because we didn't have like nifty computers that you input the information in and then it gets organized. And so they were there for probably about 2 years because there was this crazy backlog of things that had to be done and sorted and taken care of. And so, yeah, they weren't just taking a quick jaunt down to Bethlehem and then back home, right? They were going down, they had to move with all their stuff because they had to live there indefinitely for however long this registration took, okay? Have you guys ever had to move during like already a major life transition? Yeah, was that fun for you? Right? I mean, that's exhausting. Add the political world that they're in, where they're being heavily taxed, Jews are treated like as oppressed by Rome, right? And then you have this paranoid king hunting down your family that you're marrying into, Mary, and you're actually, your baby is the king he's stressed about. Oh, geez, okay? So Mary's politically exhausted, right? This situation is insane and unjust and kind of like evil to suddenly have to make people uproot, really just like for the ego of this broken king. So yeah, they couldn't travel light. They had to move down for who knows how long. On top of that, there's physical exhaustion. So the journey down to Bethlehem is at least estimated by scholars about 1 to 2 weeks on foot. On foot. 1 to 2 weeks. Up to 10 miles a day. Even for New Yorkers, I feel that is that's a lot of pace to maintain, right? On top of that, you'll notice it says they went up to Bethlehem. This wasn't like, I think we picture a map and we're like, north. It was not going up to Bethlehem. It was uphill. And so, actually it's south, but it's almost entirely uphill. So they're climbing like mountains. This is like a hike, and the whole hike is covered in like sharp rocks, and it's very steep. It's like a difficult journey, all right? And this is happening in the season that is like rainy and cold and slippery, All right, this is the rainy season. So this is not a comfortable journey. And in fact, because probably partially of the shame of the situation with Mary, they likely wouldn't have been allowed to stay a lot of places. And so probably what most scholars agree is that they were probably camping. So you're super pregnant and moving with all your stuff, hiking and camping to try to get fresh water for up to 2 weeks through the freezing rain. All right? Yeah, and on top of that, like, I just want to be clear on who here has been pregnant before? Does anybody want to raise their hand? Some people? Okay, that's fine. We're going to talk about pregnancy for a second. So when you're pregnant, it's very easy. People are visually like, the belly, so cute. Okay, the belly is really uncomfortable. All right, I haven't been pregnant. I've been around kids a lot, right? And I've been with mothers through pregnancy a lot. So it's not just the belly, though, right? Your ankles, your feet are swollen really pretty badly. You're short of breath because it's putting pressure on your lungs, right? And at this point, late in the pregnancy, she's probably not able to sleep much, all right? Even just normal pregnancies with all of today's comforts, usually by the end, people are like, get the baby out, right? And they're really praying for the baby to come early. And in fact, that's one of the theories about why they went so late in the pregnancy, is that they might have been like, come on, let's give birth first, and then we'll go down. It'll be a little bit, like, they couldn't do that. And so instead, she's still pregnant and has to make this journey while she's super, super pregnant. Now, if I was Mary in this situation, and I've already endured months of social exhaustion, I'm already dealing with the realities politically about like why I even have to do this. And I'm doing a move super pregnant because the baby didn't come early. I'd be like, God, what the heck? Right? Did you just pick me to suffer? Like, what is this? This is insane. You could get me pregnant and like cause this whole situation, but you couldn't get the baby out? You couldn't stop Herod from doing this crazy thing? Like, I don't understand. And especially this is like literally out of faithfulness to God that she's in this situation, all right? So this is extra frustrating. I'd be like, I'm sitting here trusting you. You're supposed to have my back. What is this? And so what happens is that she's dealing with this, social exhaustion, political exhaustion, physical exhaustion. She's stuck doing this journey. And I want us to just kind of imagine being in this situation, right? Imagine going through something nobody else understands and people judge you for. Dealing with this political reality, right? And there's actually oppressive rulers hunting you down, making you move for their own reasons. And physically having to endure months of discomfort and difficulty, then in the worst of it, hiking for a week or two in the freezing rain. On top of that, you're probably spiritually exhausted, wondering why God hasn't made this easier, and if he just picked you to struggle. I think this is that moment where it's that one more thing, and I'm going to have a meltdown, right? If you haven't melted down already, and if you've melted down already, honestly, respect. Okay? Like, this is such a hard situation. This is crazy. And so I think you're like, okay, you get through the journey somehow you get there. And you somehow arrive in Bethlehem and there's nowhere to stay. I mean, this is an insane moment. And then you go into labor. Okay. You are relegated to a cave under someone's house where the animals sleep. And pretty much everybody agrees it's a cave. Like it's like a cave basement situation. So it stinks of animals, right? It's dirty. It's gross, right? And this is the moment where God is asking for more? This is the moment where God's like, time for the hardest physical thing anyone's had to go through. Labor. Okay, and we don't know how long her labor was, right? It can sometimes take over a day of pushing and sweating and crying and pain and ouchie and okay. It's bad. And so I'm not trying to be super graphic, but I just want to honor women who give birth. I mean, we talk about the crucifixion. I think we can talk about birth for a second. It's wild what birth entails, okay? Assuming even things don't go wrong, which they frequently do, have worse things happen, what definitely occurred in this moment is Mary split herself open and bled for somebody who was going to bleed for everybody else, right? She uniquely suffered for somebody who was going to suffer for us. And I think that is the reason why, on the cross, Jesus says, "Behold your mother." He tells everybody to go look at Mary. And I think it's because he's like, Mary went through this for me, right? I think he understands that connection. And so, it sounds very wonderful and fantastic, but in the moment, I don't think Mary is feeling great. I think she's like, ah! It's not good. And I do want to be clear on what the situation was for Mary as well. Obviously, I think nobody would think, she probably had an epidural, right? She obviously did not have any kind of pain medication. She also didn't have, I think, what you would think a step down. Oh, a water birth, right? Warm, soothing. No, she's in a cave. There's no warm water there for her. But she didn't even have what would have been normal comfort at the time or normal help. So normally at the time, you would have had a midwife, right? There's no midwife in the story. Normally, you would have a female relative there with you. She has no family in Bethlehem. And so Mary is alone, completely alone in the cave. And I want to be clear, Joseph's not there being the supportive husband, okay, breathe, you can do this. He can't be there, right? It would have been super inappropriate at the time for the husband to be there, but especially because Joseph has not had sex with her. This isn't going to be the first intimate moment they share, okay? And so Joseph is outside the cave pacing, just waiting to see what's going on, and Mary is alone by all accounts. At the end of all this, right? The reality of the Christmas story is that it is hard. It is a hard thing, all right? As much as we want a break, we might feel if one more thing happens, I'm going to lose it, so I need to walk away, I need to leave, bubble bath, couch potato, I just need to introvert for a while. We get into these rhythms where we spiritualize a certain kind of rest to get ourselves together before the next thing, right? Biblically, we can expect from the Christmas story, those are the exact moments God wants us to pour out more instead. And it's really hard because we would like to get our mess together first and then be able to feel like we have something to offer. But when Mary feels like she has given everything already and she has nothing more to offer, that's when she gives, I think, the hardest part of this story. Why? I think that's a natural question. And I think part of it is even in these toddler meltdowns, aren't we dude, I would just spare the toddler if I could? We're why won't you sleep? You're going to be so frustrated tomorrow, and I want to spare you that. We feel like that with ourselves. God, why wouldn't you just take away this difficulty? Why wouldn't you just make it a little easier? And it's so much worse because you believe for it. You're I know you can. I know you can make it easier. And it was a question, I think, that Mary was probably asking. And I think that because she's in good company if she was. Jesus asked that question. Right? And Paul, and I want to turn to Paul because I think his words in particular, it literally could have been written by Mary. Let me read it to you guys, and just pay attention to everything he mentions because it's everything that applies to Mary in this situation. So Paul is talking about he has his own suffering God won't take away from him. He doesn't know why. And he pleads with God, please take this away. And instead God responds and he says, my grace is sufficient for you. For power is perfected in weakness. So Paul says, therefore, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in distresses, in persecutions, in difficulties on behalf of Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Mary went through all of these things, right? She is feeling probably the most weak she's ever felt physically. She's dealt with insults and assumptions. She has dealt with distresses, right? a dangerous journey, being hunted down by a king. She has dealt with persecutions. She's dealt with certainly difficulties. I think all of these things would qualify as difficulties. And she's done it all on behalf of Christ. She has literally done it out of faith, and she's been told, you're favored for this. What does it mean that strength is perfected there, right? When we're at the end of our own strength, that is the place where God's strength becomes relevant. And that is a better strength, right? And I say this is so tangible to us here, I think, in America, leading a relatively comfortable lifestyle, right? The reality is do you know why I think America believes less for miracles, hopes less for miracles, tries less, right? We don't feel like we need it. We really don't. We feel like, maybe God heals me, maybe the doctor, right? Right? If we don't really pray for our daily bread, that's a metaphor, right? Nobody really needs God to give them food day by day, right? We are so used to our own strength that the idea of reaching the end of our strength terrifies us. We're not comfortable with that at all. And so the idea that we would, in our weakness, in that moment of breakdown, be put there by God feels really uncomfortable to us because avoiding that feels like the better choice. But biblically, that breakdown point is the point where God comes and encounters us and does something big. And so I got to tell you guys, the preparation for this sermon for me has been just comically relevant, all right? I have been sick for most of this year now, straight. My birthday weekend in June, early June, I got a fever that could have killed me. It was almost 104 degrees. And since then, I've had a slew of other issues. I'm just going to briefly explain some of them because it's relevant and also so that you understand what I'm saying. Because you're like, you don't seem sick. So I have had, basically from that, I got secondary infections, both eyes, both ears, fluid that wouldn't drain, and then that messes up kind of your whole system. And so from there, it's been this long road where my whole system is fried, my whole nervous system. And everything is responded to with inflammation. I eat something crunchy, inflammation. My gums get huge, right? It gets too hot in my room because my landlord cranks the heat. I get hives all over my body. My throat is weak. I constantly have abdominal pain on my left side. I am sensitive to noise, so I've been out of service a lot because I've been really sick for 6+ months straight. And I don't know why God hasn't healed me, right? And there's been moments of breakthrough and moments where I've believed. Do you know how much I've asked for prayer? I have gone after it. I've had faith for that, right? And it's worse. Isn't it worse? Right? It's not even I don't think I need healing or I don't think God can do it. I've really believed for it and it's not happened. And I've had cool breakthrough and not complete healing. And I don't know why that is. My ears drained after a month when somebody prayed for me. And then I stayed sick. What the heck is that? And I think the real thing is when I got sick, people were like, Danielle, I think this is a spiritual attack against you. I totally agree. So what does that mean? Does that mean that evil's winning a little bit in my life right now? I think that's the real question. When suffering is not alleviated, if we can agree suffering is evil, does that mean evil is winning in someone's life? That's a hard thing to wrestle with. It's part of why we have such a hard time with this. But I can tell you what I do know. This has been just comedic the last 6 months, the ways God's used me. Let me give you guys some concrete examples. This isn't even an exhaustive list. So much has happened in the last 6 months while I've been sick and mostly couch-ridden, right? First of all, when the fever almost killed me, do you know what happened right then? This play that I wrote about willingly dying for Jesus got picked up by a theater festival and got made. Insane, right? Then when my ears wouldn't drain, I couldn't hear properly, I somehow in that timeline created an audio drama. I had to learn how to audio edit when I couldn't hear. That's crazy. That should be impossible. right? When I had the worst brain fog, I led a writing and spirituality small group, and I was like giving feedback like a professor on everybody's written work every week. That's insane. When my voice was gone because the drainage was finally happening, I couldn't hardly talk. That's when I got invited to preach. When I had the worst abdominal pain I've had, I created a liturgy using a meal to explore prayer. I mean, I have esophagitis. I can barely swallow, right? And I still was able to lead everybody through this amazing meal. It's insane. When I was so isolated and I was feeling the most lonely and the most discouraged, that's when I got to lead this like Advent collaboration and meetings with these other amazing preachers and connect with them all the time. And so I'm like, it's there. When I am weak, I am strong. In each one of those weaknesses, each area of spiritual attack, right? God's just embarrassing Satan. Right? He's like, yeah, you want to mess with her ears? I'm going to do something with them. You want to mess with her voice? She'll preach. Right? We get embarrassed by these breakdown moments, right? And sometimes it's because the kid is having the breakdown. We get embarrassed by that. Sometimes it's because we don't want to have the breakdown ourselves. We find it embarrassing, right? God doesn't get embarrassed like that. He will stay with you in that breakdown. He doesn't feel a need to shut it down. He doesn't feel a need to move on from it, to distract you, to get you to focus on something else. God is with you in that moment. And like, I've been through all of this, and like, do you know how many times I've cried? And I'm not a big crier. I have cried. This is so frustrating to experience for so long. This request to preach could not have come at a worse time. All right? Do you know how hard it is for me to even like Bible study right now? I have to push through so much stuff in order to do this, right? But when I am weak, I'm strong, because when I'm weak, God is strong. God is there, and I can sense and I can see very clearly his presence and his victory and him using all the mess that I would think would disqualify me. If this is a spiritual attack, I really think God is having so much fun embarrassing the enemy at every turn. And I think he did this with Mary too. Let me tell you what. God's like, oh yeah, evil king who's stressed out about other kings. I got a king for you, right? God's like, yeah, you have to travel a great distance, Mary. I'm going to come from heaven to earth, right? There's no room for you. I'm preparing a place for everyone. And that's what you would do, and that would be especially pertinent to her, because that's what you would do if you were betrothed. You would literally build a place for your fiance. And so, yeah, you're relegated to a cave, like it's a shameful thing. No one's going to give you a guest room to give birth. You're stuck down there. Wait till you see what I do with a cave in about 30 years, right? He came into a cave because he was going to come out of one. God was just embarrassing every bit of suffering, every bit of evil that was involved in this story. God had something good to come out of it. So for you guys, what's your mess? Where are you just exhausted, right? You're like, I've tried to follow God, I've tried to trust him, and he has taken so much from me, right? I don't think I have more to give. Where are you like in that place? At best, I think this is a busy month for people. And at worst, like, it's a very hard time for people who are grieving. Maybe you have a lot of doubts going on. This year just didn't go the way that you hoped that it would. Maybe your family is hard, and you're kind of dreading seeing them over the holidays. And maybe you're just lonely in your struggle, the way that Mary was alone in that cave, or the way that the shepherds were alone when they got this news, and we'll get into that next week. But this is what God does. He takes your exhaustion, he takes your caves, he takes your injustice, and he makes them do good. He reworks the whole thing for good. And I think that's a better hope, right? It's a better hope than just avoiding the pain. And so, are you ready to meet God in those places of exhaustion? Are you ready for him to ask you for one more thing? And are you willing to let him not be embarrassed by the meltdown you might have. Because you might, and that's okay. I don't think it should be something that's embarrassing. I don't. It's hard. It's hard to follow Jesus. The call is to take up our cross and follow him. He didn't come to give these people a better life, right? I'm just going to tell you some spoilers about what happens to the Holy Family. Joseph dies young. Mary has to live as a widow, then watch her son die a really terrible death. I mean, she has to literally watch it, which I don't even want to watch the movie. I'm good. Right? And she had to watch her nephew, who was also prophesied by an angel, get killed. All right? The angels didn't come because it meant everything was going to be good and happy and smooth and it was a peaceful thing. You're not promised a silent night. You're not. And I know that can be what it feels like. That's what my soul needs. That's what I'm longing for. You're not promised that. What you're promised is a transformation of your mess into something beautiful, into something meaningful, into a victory that changes the world. That is what you're promised. And so you, at your busiest and tiredest and most drained, you're probably tempted to withdraw. Like I said, we want to go back to bed, right? You're probably tempted to lean out as much as you can. What would it mean to wait with expectation instead? That's what this whole series is about. When you're feeling messy and you're feeling like God can't possibly use this, what does it mean to know and wait and expect that God is going to do something at the end of your strength? I don't know if Mary was sitting there giving birth, pondering all this and being like, yes, here I sit alone in a cave, dealing with shame under a political empire that is oppressive, but I am birthing the Prince of Peace, and it will be so redemptive one day, right? No, I don't think so, right? I don't think that she got it at that point. But what I do know is that later, when the wise men come and talk to her about the King of the Jews, they use that phrase for him, it says she treasured these things in her heart. That is the promise, right? The great counterintuitive promise is that there is nothing better and more restorative than pouring out when you feel empty. There is nothing more healing than sacrifice. And there is absolutely nothing richer or more full of treasures than when we empty ourselves. I am not even all the way done with my suffering, right? I'm not even on the other side and it was great. But I have so many treasures that I can already ponder in my heart, and I know there will be more with more distance. All right, so that's my encouragement to you guys. What does it mean to expect God and to believe for riches in emptying yourself beyond the point of what feels possible? If you're spent this Advent, expect something big. I'm going to pray for us real quick. God, I am in awe of how you make broken things into something good. I am astounded at how you turn beautiful things that are ugly. Lord, I am so grateful that you sit with us when we're at that meltdown point and that you're not embarrassed the way that we are by it. And Lord, I am grateful that your strength is somehow made perfect in weakness. Lord, I am grateful for that incredible irony that could only come from you. And so, Lord, I praise you and I worship you as the King who transforms things. God, I know that there are people in here who are exhausted, who are tired, who feel like they have trusted you and who feel like it's burdensome and heavy and hard. I know that there are people here who are longing to see things transformed in their lives and who are hoping to be able to get a glimpse of those treasures. Jesus, I just pray that you would show them your presence with them right now in Jesus' name. I pray that the Holy Spirit would fall on them in a fresh way as they worship today. I pray that you would be so near to them that it would be tactile. And I pray, Lord, that you would comfort people who are dealing with their own messiness right now and help them to know that they are not disqualified and in fact, they're right where you want them to be, Lord. Thank you that our hope does not rest in ourselves, in our own strength, but in you. In Jesus' name.